Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, March 23rd. Coming back from the hospital, going home. My mom is back in the hospital. And that's 3 hospital stays in 3 weeks. Obviously, that causes disruption to families, to business. And I thought it appropriate to talk about something. So a couple weeks ago, I wrote a blog article about how now, right about now, the seller tsunami of business owners, the people in my business have been expecting for better part of 2 decades, is finally coming to mark. As I've been in and out of the hospital, I've been taking on engagements with 60, 70, and even 80-year-old people. Some of those 80-year-olds are partnered with their children, which is what I'm going to talk about now. I had a conversation with a property management company where the business owner, the partner, is a realtor who I had met, frankly, in my licensing class some 18 years ago. And her mom's got cancer, her mom has COPD, and is not really working in the business, but the daughter is, and the daughter really doesn't want to work in the business, was kind of, for lack of a better term, guilted into working there when her passion and her degrees and her other job is something that she really loves. And she's called me probably 3 times over the last 5 years for valuations and discussion on process, and she's really struggling. So she, like me, are the sandwich generation, that generation of people that are caring for our parents and all that goes with that, the obligations, the stress, the disruptions. Those are not bad things or good things, those are just things. And this video is really to those baby boomers who have businesses in which there are families involved. Another organization I belong to, since I'm a Roman Catholic, is a group called the Knights of Columbus. And the Knights of Columbus were founded, believe it or not to wear funny hats, but as an insurance company for widows and orphans in Connecticut back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. There were immigrant families, Portuguese, Italian, and Irish men that were dying in factories, and this priest put together a charitable organization to care for the widows. And it manifested into what's the common image to people, the guys with the furry hats and the swords who march in parades and do charitable works. But the reality is it's an enormous multi-billion-dollar insurance company. And when I was in that organization, really active as a Grand Knight, leading councils, I would oftentimes have to have discussions with the men of the chapter or of the council about having disability insurance and life insurance, and about how it is irresponsible for a father or any parent to not have those policies in place. And that one of the greatest acts of charity you can perform for your family is to have the means available to care for people in their old age, and the means available to care for them and their family and their dependents and their debts when they pass. And it was talking about disability insurance and life insurance and the various policies that are required to, care for a family post-life or even in the aging years, long-term policies, things like that. So flash forward to this conversation with this young lady about her mother not wanting to stage the business or get the business sold. And this is a young lady who's in her 40s, who has her own career and her own life to plan for, who is making little money working in the family business and doesn't want to work in the family business, and is struggling with how to have that conversation. And there's obviously emotion, there's personalities, there's end of life concerns on the part of the business owner. When you're in your 70s and 80s, you think you'll go on forever. And I'm living that now, where my mother, is facing real issues towards the end. But death smiles at us all, to quote Maximus from Gladiator. We're not going to live forever. And the baby boomers are an interesting generation because the last 20 years, if you think about it, go back through the economic window, they've been punched in the mouth quite a few times with some real disruptions. You go back to 2008 when they were in their 60s. They got hit in the mouth with the Great Recession, which a lot of them had real estate holdings and got really pounded. Then we had COVID, and now we've got clearly an inflationary situation and a recession in many regards, where the cost of capital is devaluing the ability of businesses to be sold at a price expectation that they may want. And then there's just the real emotional and psychological idea of transitioning your life's work while you're still here, and having enough money to be there at the end. So what's this all about? The reality is that, if you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s and you're a business owner now, you need to prepare for that day. Rarely do people call me 3, 5, 6, 10 years in advance and have discussions. And I encourage you to do so, so that you can prepare. You also have to find other things to do with your life so that you're not, your life and identity is not tied up to this entity, because when it goes, you'll have nothing left to do, and you don't want to spend your time playing golf and mahjong at the over 55 community. But back to that, you have a duty to your family members. If you're going to leave your business to your family, you have to realize they may not want it. And you also have to realize that you have a duty to see the market for what it is, and in order to maximize the value, to deal with your end of life circumstances. If you don't have those insurance policies I referred to earlier, you have a requirement, I would say a duty, not a requirement, but a duty to care for those that you've raised, your family, and also your work. If you don't have family, you should transition it to someone else so that entity lives on beyond you, like Sears or Apple. And you can craft that legacy. Unfortunately, we see a lot of people just hold on too long, and when they hold on too long, their skills, their talents, their capabilities decline, and the results of the business does the same. That manifests into some really bad stuff, where sometimes the business is not sellable, or it becomes something of a shell of what it once was. So I don't really have an answer for those people that are the sandwich generation, because sometimes it's hard to have difficult conversations with people, as it was just the other day with that young lady. I get it. I'm living it now. I am blessed in the regard that my father did plan. My father did have the paperwork in order. My father did recognize the personalities involved and delegate roles, in the execution of the legal documents to ensure that his wishes and cares were followed through long after he's gone. So what are the action items? 1, if you own a business, you should have long-term care, you should have disability, and you should have life insurance policies. I don't sell them. Go find somebody that does. You should have an exit plan. There's things like exit factor, but a good business broker and a good attorney can assist you on that, and have those documents prepared. You need to know the details, and you need to, while you're still in good order and still of good mental capacity, have this discussion with your heirs. Who's going to run it? Who wants to run it? Do they want to run it? How do we retain the wealth? What is the vision of the business? Is the business viable in times gone by? And when you go, or you sell it, if God willing you're still alive, that you relinquish control. I've got some other friends that, where the father passed on the business and the father is still meddling in the son's work, and that's not fair. When the baton is passed, the baton is passed. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, when he retired and handed off the business, he actually, he owned a farm, and he transitioned the business to one of the sons, had all the legal documents there, and worked alongside the son, almost like an exit plan. But when he stepped away, he stepped away. He still helped, but he wasn't making command decisions any longer. He recognized when the mantle was passed, and accepted that the stewardship was in someone else's hands. Almost like a king regent or a queen regent. When the heir comes of age, you pass the baton and you take a step back. That's sometimes hard in the model of leadership some people have in their mind, but in a perfect world, that's where I think we need to be. So to the baby boomers out there, do yourself and your families and your heirs and your business a favor. Be realistic and professional in how you steward your business. Do not be reckless and ride the ship. We see it in sports where they play too long. We see it in politicians today where they're hanging on too long. And that happens in business as well. Love to hear your feedback on this one. Mike Shea, your Florida